guys, so I'm starting this very late. Like, I'm already on my second book for Wheel of D20 because I just completely forgot to start filming for this vlog. But I have completed one book on my Wheel of D20 TBR already, and that was Unlock Your Storybook Heart by Amanda Lovelace. This is for... I think it was my husband's pick. Yeah, I think it was the friend pick that basically my husband ended up deciding on for me because none of my friends were responding at the time. So yeah, this absolutely amazing. This is a poetry collection. It is the third set in a collection of poetry books that Amanda has written that are called You Are Your Own Fairy Tale, where they basically are poems that are inspired by certain, specifically Disney princesses. This one is inspired by Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and essentially this is a whole thing about basically coming into your own and being proud of who you are despite what everybody else, you know, tries to make you feel like, you know, especially if you're kind of the odd one out, and really celebrating people who are different and celebrating people who go against the norm, even though they kind of are pressured into doing so. So I love anything Amanda Lovelace puts out. Like, she hits so hard because so many of her poems really hit hard for me. In particular, like, they feel very personal, like a little bit of personal attacking in some ways, but very personal and very relatable in a lot of ways. And so I always am going to enjoy what she puts out. I have not found a collection as of yet that has done me wrong. So I think she is going to be a poet I'm going to continue to buy from, especially because she's also a fellow witch. Yeah, so I did give this a 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. This is one of the only kind of more flash poets that I really enjoy, like, consistently. Because sometimes flash poetry can be a little bit iffy for me, but Amanda, I think, really hits the head of the nail with a lot of stuff when it comes to their flash poetry. So really love that. Now, the next book I'm working on is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, kind of kickstarting a kind of reread slash finish series for me in a sense, because I've been wanting to come back to this series for a while. I had got through the first 2 books in the Mortal Instruments before ultimately giving up. I have a lot, though, of the Shadowhunter World books, and I've been meaning to come back to this series for a while, but I was a little hesitant to because I thought that it was not going to be as good as when I remembered it being the first time, especially the first book, because when I had thought back on my experience of reading City of Bones in particular, it was not enjoyable throughout the entirety of it. I had felt that Clary was absolutely annoying and that Simon was like the best thing since sliced bread, you know, all that stuff. But upon this reread, I'm finding that Clary is not as annoying as I think she used to be in my mind, and I'm kind of still of the mind that Simon is a better choice for her, but at the same time I respect the fact that, like, they have a very ingrained friendship that would be really difficult to move on from, which is why Clary's not, like, super interested in him in that way. In a lot of ways, I also find Jace a little more aggravating this time than I think I did the first time. And that's interesting because I know everyone is like, oh my gosh, Jace is the heartthrob. And, like, yes, he has some very sweet moments in this, especially with Clary, but he is kind of just... He's one of those guys that I remember very vividly from, like, growing up in school that I probably would have hated because he is just constantly cracking jokes. He could never be taken seriously. Like, he's just one of those guys I probably would not have gelled with very much in school. So I'm not really gelling with him in this right now, but that is only because we've seen, you know, so much of him. I am about almost halfway through this right now, and I am enjoying it. I'm actually enjoying it, I think, a lot more this time than I did the very first time I read this. It's almost as if basically going into this again for the entire first time because it's been so long since I read it, and I have, like, practically no memory of this entire series. So I think that that's working in my favor right now because I am a lot older, and this is a very old YA series, and so it's making it easier for me to, I think, enjoy it for what it is. and respect the fact that this came out in a time where this was the style, very similar to a lot of other really popular, 2000s, 2010s YAs of the time. And so I think that this is going to end up being more enjoyable than I think I had originally thought. But we'll see, because I do remember then too that this was the book where a lot of icky stuff came in toward the end, and so we'll see how my reactions are for it. But so far, not too bad. Really enjoying it, and I'm actually going to be in the course of a 48-hour readathon, which that vlog already would have gone out by this point. So I'll be working on this and finishing it up today, and then moving on to my next Wheel of D20 book, which I don't know what it is off the top of my head because I don't have all my things with me right now. My bullet journal's in the bedroom, but very excited to continue. I'm going to be out and about doing some errands and then going over to my parents' house tonight. So I will have a lot of good time, I think, to get some stuff read in the next 48 hours. But at the very least, I will be getting my next Wheel of D20 book done. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Hey guys, so very, very excited for today. I already today, about 5 o'clock in the evening, spent pretty much my entire afternoon while doing stuff today, finishing City of Bones. So I've completed my second book now of the Wheel of D20 for the month of March, which is very exciting. I'm already a third of the way through all 6 of my books, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with this. So I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I was pleasantly surprised because I feel like really my biggest gripe with the entire thing is I'm just not a fan of Jace. I don't think I ever was a fan of him. Like, I always kind of thought of him as kind of that really angsty teenage boy that just, like I said earlier, reminds me so much of guys I went to high school with that just got under my skin, and I just didn't like him because of that. I also feel like Alec was really just not great. Like, the only decent guy that seemed to be in this was Simon, but he was also like super whiny throughout most of this. Like, I don't know what it is about the boys in this series so far, but they're not hitting. I think I've just found so many better like fictional guys that I'm just like, they're the top tier, like best guys ever. These guys are like C tier at most, C tier and lower basically. So I did though really enjoy this. I actually seem to like have remembered quite a bit in terms of how exactly everything goes down, especially when the big bad guy shows up and all the reveals happen in this book. Sorry for the huge solar flare there, just the sun peeking through. But I also, though, realized I did forget some things in terms of that. So I'm pretty happy to say that I am actually interested in continuing reading this series. This was on my list for series that I would like to try to finish in this year. And so I think that now that I've officially restarted it and I didn't hate it, and I actually really enjoyed it, I think that it is possible I will continue to read more of these books as time goes on and when I have the space to continue reading. Now, this was for the prompt for a revenge, or basically like, what was it? It was one of the prompts basically from the Naruto adventure game, and it was a revenge plot or theme. That's what it was. So this one does have a revenge plot in the sense that the ultimate bad guy is looking to get revenge, in a sense, on the people that basically took him down, and he's trying to then also continue the legacy that he tried to set up originally. And one of the ways of revenge is, in a sense, bringing down Clary's mother, who we learn in the beginning of the book goes missing, and we don't know what's happened to her. So it's kind of stretching it a little bit, but really, really good. Really liked this a lot. And like I said, gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The book I'm going to read is actually another Wheel of D20 pick, obviously, for this vlog, but it is Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Book 2, The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. Now, I read The Lightning Thief last year, toward like the end part of last year, and I really liked it. I have never really read the Percy Jackson series. I watched the movies when they came out, but I never read the books. And I did read Rick Riordan's Kane Chronicles, so I at least know that I like his writing style. And I've read other books in a similar vein through the Rick Riordan Presents imprint with Disney Hyperion. So this is something that I'm definitely going to enjoy in terms of the way that it's written and the way that the story, brings in mythology and all that stuff. I apologize for the sun. the blind is closed, but it's coming through like a little bit of a gap. So we're just going to have to deal with it because I don't have really much else to go here. But this, for the Wheel of D20, is the prompt of a childhood favorite, because I'm stretching this a little bit, where I know that if I had read this when I was a kid, I would have loved it, because I think that it has all of the elements that I would have been falling in love with if I had read this as a kid. I don't know why I never read it as a kid, honestly. This was like one of those series where I know every single person that was a reader growing up was reading this series. So I don't know why I never got on the bandwagon. I just never did. I was very much, I think, more invested in the time at with Harry Potter. But I should have read this series. I think I would have enjoyed it just as much, if not more, than Harry Potter at the time. But I am so happy to have the entire series right now and be able to read them. So I am very excited. Now, this is a much shorter book, so I probably could get through this in a few hours, because if I remember correctly, reading through The Lightning Thief, it did not take me very long. It took me maybe an afternoon to get through almost the entire thing. This is about 278 pages, and the audiobooks are usually pretty quick. So I don't know how much I'm going to read of it today, because I'm in the process of a 48-hour readathon, like I said earlier. But at the very least, I can read some of this on my drive to my parents' house, and maybe on the way back. Probably not, though, because it's going to be pretty late. But at the very least, I can get started with this, and I'll be taking it with me, at least to my parents' house. But I'm going to be spending time with my grandmother, who has been visiting and is going to be leaving this coming Saturday. So I want to spend time with her before I end up, not seeing her before she leaves. But I will at least take this for my drive. So probably get through a good few chapters of this before we get there, but I'm pretty excited. I think I'm going to enjoy this. I think I gave The Lightning Thief like a 4 out of 5 stars, because I just felt like there were some things that were just a little bit too inconvenient for the sake of being inconvenient, as opposed to like being an actual reason. But I am hoping that this is gonna continue, because I've heard that the series just gets better and better as you go. So I'm pretty excited. And then if I enjoyed this enough, I think I'd like to read Rick's other series, like the Magnus Chase series, the Heroes of Olympus series. I think those are the only other two besides The Daughter of the Deep that I still have to read of his. But obviously, I'm going to continue reading more of the Rick Riordan Presents imprint, because I want to finish the Aru Shah series by Roshani Chokshi. I want to read Dragon Pearl, and I want to continue with the Sarwat Chada series. I can't remember what the title of the series is, but it's the one with the Mesopotamian mythology. There's so many series by different authors from that imprint I want to read, because they all sound amazing, and I love learning about mythology and the stories that get inspired through those mythologies of the demigods, and bringing them to life in a more younger way. I don't know, I can't apparently word things very well today. I apologize. So but for right now, I'm gonna head out, so I will speak to you guys when I have probably finished this, since this is not going to take me too long to get through compared to a nearly 500-page book. But we shall see what my final thoughts on The Sea of Monsters are in a little while. Hey guys, so I just finally finished my third book for the Wheel of D20, which was Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. This was for the childhood favorite prompt, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It wasn't really too bad. There was a few things I felt like were just a little unnecessary in terms of the overall plot in this one in particular, but I am pleasantly surprised that the overarching plot of the books is the way that it is, because for some reason in my brain, I don't know why, but in my brain I thought that the whole thing with Luke and bringing Kronos back and all that was only within the first couple books, not all of the books, which I love that. I think that that's awesome. It makes a lot of sense though, because if I think of the way that Aru Shah, for instance, is, even though it's much more recent, that's a more newer series, that's kind of a similar thing, is that they have the ultimate bad guy that is being talked about, and things happen in each installment that further that plot. Whereas in the individual books, there's other things going on that are also furthering that plot, but are individual adventures. So I really liked this. I thought it was good. Definitely a really good second installment in a series, but there was just some things I kind of was like, that were like side plot things I didn't care for. But I will say Tyson is like baby to me. He is the sweetest thing. He needs to be protected at all costs. Tyson is great. Nobody can touch Tyson. Leave him alone. You hurt him, I'm coming after you. I think I actually liked him more than I cared for Grover in the first book, which was kind of interesting because I like Grover. I like him as a character, but I feel like I like Tyson more as a sidekick. I don't know. I like Tyson. I think he's sweet. So anyway, that's going to be it for right now. I am actually, though, going to film another little beginning clip real quick that's going to determine which of my next 2 books I'm going to end up reading, because I may wait to read a Wheel of D20 book if what happens in my other video that'll be going out actually the same week as my 48-hour readathon vlog. It's going to depend on like what happens with that, because I've got something very fun going on with that one, which you guys will have seen already more than likely, but yeah, I got to figure out what I'm going to be reading next through that. So we'll see. But anyway, when I do get started with at least my next book, I'll let you guys know, and we'll kind of see how the rest of my Wheel of D20 stuff goes for this month. But so far, we are halfway through. We have 3 books out of 6 down, going strong, doing great. I think that it's possible I can complete my Wheel of D20 reads for this month. Good morning, everyone. It is 8:39 in the morning on Thursday. I'm heading off to work, and I have meant to update this vlog for a while. I just have been super busy. I haven't had the time, but I have now gone through 2 more of my Wheel of D20 books. I have now 1 left, and it is almost St. Patrick's Day. I'm about halfway through the month, and I am almost completely done with my Wheel of D20 books, which means April is going to be a really good month for me for the Wheel of D20. I'm going to be able to go down to 4 spins, which is going to be absolutely awesome. So the 2 books I read, first was Babel by R.F. Kuang. This was a reread for me, so I'm not going to get like super in-depth about my thoughts on it because I have a separate video that has talked about it. I think it was a Wheel of D20 video, honestly. This may have been on the Wheel of D20 now twice, but Babel, absolutely loved it again the second time. I think I found, though, like, some scenes even more impactful this time than I did the first time, which I think is amazing upon a reread. That is, like, what I love about doing rereads. So it made it so nice to be able to read it again. So then that was a 5-star, and then the second book I read was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, which, oh my gosh, this book was obviously super sad. This, I believe, was for a prompt that had grief as a theme. This, though, was super good. Like, it is a very short book. The book is like maybe 4 hours on audio. I got through it in like 2 hours because I listened on 2 times speed. But like, this is a book where if you have lost somebody to illness, this is a very hard book to deal with. Like, I never had a family member die from like cancer or anything, but I have seen the very slow decline of somebody, and then sometimes rapid decline toward the end, when it comes to family members who have, you know, passed away. And so that was in itself incredibly sad, but this is about a boy who, his mother is dying of cancer, and he starts having what he thinks are nightmares with this huge yew tree that is like a monster. And the yew tree specifically is behind the house where he and his mother live. Story really about coming to terms with the fact that somebody you love is going to die and you can't do anything to stop it. And it is so incredibly sad. It is something where I definitely think that you have to be in the right headspace to listen to, because it is something where it could very easily send people down a spiral, especially those that have lost family to
any form of illness, let alone cancer. This boy too, he is 13 years old and his parents were separated. So his dad lives in America with a new wife and he has a new family, all that. And his grandmother, his mom's mom, is kind of somebody, he doesn't get along with her very well. So the story also talks about, you know, when you have a parent that dies, and especially when you have been living with a parent that's had pretty much sole custody of you, what happens to a kid that is in that situation when their parent that has sole custody of them dies? And you know, they don't talk explicitly about what happens after. Like, I will say the book doesn't go through all of that, but you're kind of led to believe that once he kind of accepts what's happening, things will kind of get figured out from there, which I think is the case for a lot of people, where like they deny that things are happening, and it's because, you know, that is one of the stages of grief, is denial. You know, thinking that somebody's going to get better, somebody's going to, you know, make it through, they're not going to be sick forever. This book literally, I think, goes through some of the stages of grief, if not all of them. And to be a 13-year-old kid and deal with that is incredibly hard. I know that when I was 13 years old, I lost my grandfather. It was not in the same fashion as this boy, Connor, but it was very sudden. And it really left a hole in my heart for many, many years. And so I related to Connor in a lot of ways. Now, again, I had a very different situation where my grandfather died suddenly. There was not really a slow, steady decline. It was, he was there and then he was gone, which I think has a very different way in which you grieve with that. But nonetheless, I was the same age as Connor when I lost a family member. And so being at that age and losing somebody that was incredibly important to you, that was like a huge part of your life, you know, it hurt. Now it's been 12 years since I lost my grandfather, and it still hurts sometimes to think about the fact that he didn't get to see me get married, you know, didn't get to see me graduate from high school, didn't get to see me graduate from college, like any of that stuff. Like it really hurts even 12 years later. But at some point, you get to a point where the grief gets easier to deal with. And you focus less on what they've missed out on and really focus more on enjoying the time and the space that you have with the family that you still have around. And in my spiritual practice, my personal spiritual practice, he is not fully gone. He actually is, I believe, one of my biggest protectors. He has always kind of been there with me in my practice. And he's not necessarily like the biggest part of my practice, but he's there. He is there as kind of a support when I'm feeling really lost. Like, you know, he definitely is somebody that comes to me in dreams and in my practice is someone I can rely on to help me get through, you know, spells, help me get through anything. Even if he may not in the living sense be somebody who would have appreciated or have really understood the practice that I have, I would like to think that somewhere out there where he is, he has clear understanding of everything. And because he watches over me, he wants to help, because he was a person who wanted to help in every single way. So this book really just got me thinking about a lot of stuff with all of that. And I, like I said, feel like that if you're gonna read this, you do have to be in the right headspace, because this is not an easy book to read, and especially not if you've lost people to some kind of sickness. But anyway, 5 out of 5 stars. Absolutely loved it from beginning to end. It was so vivid. Like, the audiobook was absolutely amazing. It was narrated by Jason Isaacs, I think, who I believe is the guy that plays Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. So I always really liked his voice, so I definitely recommend, just based on the narration of this story, to listen to it, because it's so good. But the imagery is just incredibly vivid. Like, this is the first Patrick Ness book I've ever read, and I'm interested to see how his more complicated stories are. The next book that I have to read is The Burning Bridge by John Flanagan. This is the second book in the Ranger's Apprentice series. This is a series that I started up last year, and I really liked the first book, and I figured I would continue because this is one of the series I would like to try to finish. I think I said in my series I want to finish video, or at the very least it's just one of the series that I've started and I would like to, you know, be able to finish at some point. But I really liked it. It's about this young boy who essentially gets involved into a school of apprentices, and like, you can specialize in different things. And this kid finds out that basically he is the son of an incredibly powerful ranger that, like, everybody loved. He was super good at what he did. He was like the best of the best, and unfortunately his dad had passed away, and some of the circumstances surrounding his father's death were a little mysterious. And basically the main character, by the end of the first book, he's learning a lot about what his father's story was and what he is kind of being set up to do, in the sense of like what he's going to be learning, what he's going to be doing when he gets through school, and like what exactly is the legacy that he is trying to live up to with his father, which I think in some ways is going to get really difficult to maintain, because I think about other stories where that's kind of like an overarching idea of somebody living up to a legacy. And usually what happens is there's some point where the legacy seems to be too unobtainable, and the main character struggles with, you know, the idea of ever fully living up to what somebody else had done that they are trying to emulate or trying to surpass. And I have a feeling that's going to play more as we get further on into the series, because I think the book series is like 5 to 7 books, something like that. This was a series too that, like, I remember a lot of my fantasy loving friends growing up reading, but I never got into it for some reason, and I just on a whim decided to read it last year, and I really liked it. Another very short book. It kind of borders on that like middle grade YA spectrum. Like, it is very much like kind of on the cusp. Like, there's a lot of things about it, like the length of it, that definitely feels middle grade-ish, but the content itself feels very YA. But this is like also a series that was published years ago, and so it probably was a YA series that just was a part of a time where YA books were not super long, so they had like much like less than, you know, 400-page books was like the idea for a fantasy. But anyway, guys, I am about to get to work, and so I do need to go, but I am very happy with the progress I've made this month. I was really skeptical of whether I was going to complete all 6 books, and I did it, and I'm very happy with that. So I will talk to you guys when I have finished The Burning Bridge, because like I said, it's a pretty short book, so it's not like something super like crazy to get into, and it's the second book in a series, and so I don't want to go too much into it in case anyone doesn't want to hear any spoilers on it. But at the very least, I'll let you guys know when I'm done. So I gotta go into work, but I will speak to you guys later.
Hi guys, it's going on 8 o'clock now on Sunday. I have the house to myself for the evening because Robert is over at his mom and dad's playing cards. I stayed behind today because I did have a lot of stuff I needed to do. Well, not a lot of stuff, but I had gone out with my mom and hung out with her for most of the day today, and so I came back and I had to do some filming, and one of the things I needed to do was also try to finish my last Wheel of D20 book, because I have been struggling this week with reading since I finished Babel. I don't know what it is. I just had read through A Monster Calls because I got it done in a day, and
I've just been struggling. Not that because the book I'm reading is bad by any means. Like, I'm just working on the burning bridge, but like the energy's not there, you know? But I have some energy tonight. I'm feeling good. I've got some booktube on. I'm currently watching Becca in the Books. And I figured I would take some time to sit and read and maybe do some reading sprints on my own. I haven't done that in a minute, so I figured that would be super great, especially since I'll have the house to myself for another couple hours. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and basically just get comfy, get into some comfy clothes, and probably start my first reading sprint here in a few minutes.
Hey guys, so it is 9 o'clock at night now on March 23rd, and I have finally finished the last book I needed to read for the Wheel of D20 for March, which was The Burning Bridge. I think that this one really played a lot of importance on just how much Will does not really know about being a ranger. I feel like this book really cemented the fact that not only is he inexperienced and unskilled, but also just how much potential he does have for being a very strong ranger and kind of living up to what his father had been. And it's very, very interesting. I do like the story a lot. It wasn't perfect. I did feel like I got a little bit slowed down at some points. It took me a lot longer to read this than I think I had wanted it to, because it did feel like a good part of it was just kind of chugging along and not really much happening. So I will say that it was a little bit slow, but overall, in terms of the ending of this, complete shock. Did not see how the end of this one was going to go coming in. Like, it was not in my brain that that was what was possible. So it definitely caught me off guard. So I would give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I actually liked it a lot. I liked the series a lot. I just got a little bit bogged down by some of the stuff in the middle, but not too bad. Really good second installment, and I am looking forward to reading more of the series. But with that, that is the end of my Wheel of D20 reads for March. So I have completed the Wheel of D20 in March, which means in April, I will get to go down to 4 spins as opposed to going down to 5, because as a reward for completing a punishment challenge, basically, I then get the ability to go down to the spins I would have received if I had actually, done what I was supposed to in February. So very excited for that. I'm going to go ahead and film that wheel spin stuff here in a minute. Reminder, the wheel this time technically was under the game of the Naruto missions with Novel Serendipity, because we spun that for the actual prompt, and so then all of the actual prompts for the wheel came from that game. So first we had a friend pick, which was Unlock Your Storybook Heart, which got a 5 out of 5 stars. There was a revenge plot or theme. So for that, I read City of Bones, which got a 4 out of 5 stars. Then for a childhood favorite, we had The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, which also got a 4 out of 5 stars. Then for grief as a theme, we had A Monster Calls, which got a 5 out of 5 stars. And then Hyped was Babel, which got a 5 out of 5 stars again. It was a reread for me. I absolutely loved it. Still just as good the first time as it was the second. Burning Bridge actually was completing the middle grade prompt, because this is technically in that middle grade area. And like I said, this one is getting a 4 out of 5 stars. So thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.